Is there such an importance is there for a direction in case of a physical quantity force? Definitely it is. I mean, suppose if a particle is there on the earth's surface, it has got many directions, it possesses many directions. To indicate those directions, we say north direction, west direction, south direction, east direction, clockwise, anti-clockwise, upward, downward, etc. like that. To specify the nature of the, to know the nature of the body, to know the nature of the motion, we have to specify the many direction for a particle which is under motion on the surface of the earth. I mean so, to specify the position of a particle which is under motion, depending upon the nature of the motion, depending upon the circumstance, we use one direction, two direction, many direction, etc. For example, suppose if a particle moving along a straight line, to locate its position, to specify its position, we use only horizontal direction, that is called as a x-axis. Suppose if a person sliding down from the top of the building, suppose a person sliding down from the top of the building, so to locate his position exactly, we use the horizontal direction, that is the x-axis, and vertical direction, that is y-axis. I mean, the direction has got such an importance. One more simple example to know what importance is there for the direction while measuring the physical quantity. Suppose yourself, someone says that your friend ran away from the bus stand 3 kilometers. So you say, to know where he is actually, so to know where he is actually, so you should say his motion along with the direction. Without direction, he may be anywhere from the bus stand 3 kilometers. So this is the importance of the direction here. So along with the magnitude, if a physical quantity possesses a direction, then we call it as a vector quantity. So in case of a scalars, algebra is very easy. I mean, algebra of any two or more scalar quantities is very easy. Suppose you have 50 rupees, your friend has 20 rupees. So what is the total amount with both of your friends? Means 50 plus 20 is equal to 70 rupees. You have 50 rupees. So you purchase some book for 30 rupees. How much of the amount remaining in your side? Means 50 minus 30 is equal to 20. I mean, algebra of scalars is very simple, just adding the numbers. Whereas in case of vectors, the algebra is not so simple when compared to the scalars. I don't want to say it is not possible, but to have a addition, to have a subtraction, to have a multiplication, in case of the vectors, you should follow some laws, some conventions. So I hope all of you study the vectors under the applied mathematics 1 itself. There you study the meaning of the vector, how can we represent the magnitude of the vector, so how two vectors can be added, how two vectors can be subtracted, so how the scalar multiplication of the vector is done, how the cross multiplication of the vector is done, how can we apply the concept of the multiplication of the vector while finding the work done by the body, etc. Those are all the concepts you learn under first semester applied mathematics itself. So the same concept of a vector is also prescribed in your applied science also. So the intention is the concept of vectors, the language of vectors is very important while studying the technical subjects. So this is the brief introduction regarding the vector. Now let us concentrate on different simple, but there are very important definitions for the vectors. Suppose there is a body which is actually at the point O. On this body we are going to apply some force F in the direction OA. Definitely that body will follow the direction OA. As we all know, if a force is applied on a body, then that body moves in the direction of the force. So instead of applying the force on a body which is at O, so in the direction OA, suppose if you apply same amount or different amount of force on the same body, so in the direction OB, definitely that body will follows the direction, moves in the direction OB. Instead of this, on the same material body, if you are going to apply these two forces, you can call the first force as F1 and second force as F2. So, these two forces simultaneously, I mean at a time. So, it is a body, say it is O. So, on this you have to apply the force F1 in the direction OA and the force F2 in the direction OB. Now, with which direction this body should move means, so by practical experience only you came to know that body, it never moves either the direction of OA, that is direction of force F1, nor moves the direction of force F2, that is OB. So, in between these two, so it moves with some other direction, you can call it as OC. You can call it as OC. If a body moves means some force should act on it without fail. Some force should act on it without fail. What force should be affected on this body to follow the direction OC means that the effect should be equivalent to combined effect of these two forces. I mean here whenever two forces acting on a body simultaneously, the body will move the direction of a force which is equivalent to combined effect of those two individual forces. That combined effect given by a single force, we called it by a name resultant of force, or even it is also called as a resultant of vectors. So, in the examination you can expect the question, what is the resultant of a force, what is define resultant of a vector. So, you simply say the resultant of a force is a single force which gives the combined effect of two or more individual forces. I repeat, a single force which gives the combined effect of the two or more individual forces, then corresponding force you can call it as a resultant of a force or resultant of a vector. Suppose you just imagine that whenever number of forces acting on a body simultaneously, then its resultant is 0 means definitely that body is under rest. So, for example, so this is a body O, on this in this direction, so F1 is acted, in this direction F2 is acted. So, if both are equal in magnitude, definitely the acts in the opposite direction, that body remains under rest. I mean what I want to say is, whenever number of forces acting on a body, still the body is under rest means the forces, the resultant of those forces should be equal to 0. The meaning of resultant is very important in this part. A single force which gives the combined effect of two or more individual forces. Now, you just imagine that there is a point object, say O. So, on this point object there are many forces acted. So, it has been acted by the many number of forces, say F1, F2, F3, etc. So, when the number of forces acted upon by a single body simultaneously, still that body is under rest means the forces acted upon by this body are under equilibrium. It is also one of the definition from the examination point of view. What is the equilibrium means? When number of forces acted upon by a body simultaneously, if that body is under rest, then you can say those forces are said to be in equilibrium. This is the meaning of the word equilibrium. Equilibrium of a body is different, rest of a body is different. In case of the rest of a body, there is a absence of forces. If any force acts on it, according to Newton's first law, that body changes its original state. Here, even though there are number of forces acts on it, still that body is under rest, means you can say those forces are in equilibrium. This is the concept of the equilibrium. So, after knowing the concept of the equilibrium, one more definition is there, that is equilibriant. That is equilibriant. What is equilibriant means? So, we have a body, say whose name, which is labeled as O, on which a force P is acted in the direction of A. Simultaneously, one more force is acted upon by it in the direction OB by the force Q. If this is the circumstance, definitely this object neither follows the direction of P nor follows the direction of Q. It follows some other intermediate direction. So, we call it as this one as the direction of the resultant. We call it as a direction of the resultant. Its direction is OC. So, if a body is acted upon by the number of forces, again if it is acted upon by a single force, by the presence of that single force, if the body is under rest, then that single force is called as a equilibriant and the forces acting on it are in equilibrium. I mean, you just forgotten the fourth force, I mean this R dash, in the presence of P and Q, this body will follows the direction of the resultant. So, if you apply one more force, definitely it should be equivalent to resultant, but in a direction opposite to that of a resultant, then the body is under rest, then and those forces acting on that body are under equilibrium. Then that single force, presence of this force R dash only, so these forces are in equilibrium. Therefore, this force is called as a equilibriant. So, equilibriant in a simple sense you can define. Equilibriant is a single force which is equal and opposite to the resultant. So, equal means, so resultant is R, which is equivalent to the equilibriant R dash. Opposite means you just put minus sign. So, equilibriant is a single force which is equal and opposite to the resultant. The word equal stands for their magnitude, both the magnitude of the resultant and equilibriant are the same, and the opposite means the direction of equilibriant and resultant are in a opposite sense. A single force, a equilibriant is a single force which is equal and opposite to the resultant. So, this is the meaning of the word equilibriant here. So, we are defining the three simple definitions. One is the resultant of a force, another one is the equilibrium, and one more is the equilibriant. Now, in case of a resultant, what we say is it is a combined effect of the two or more forces. Combined effect of two or more forces means if we have a two vectors, if we have a two forces, it will be combined and rewrite in the form of a single force. In case of a resolution of vectors, now the next concept is resolution of vectors. resolution of vectors, I mean resolution of vectors. I mean, so in case of resultant we have two individual forces, we just by following the conventions combine them and write it in the form of a single force. But here there is a quite reverse sense we are going to say. We have a single force, single individual force. That single force we are going to split into two components. For example, we have a force, say F. We have a force F. So, we want to split this single force with its horizontal component and vertical component. For this force F, you can write, so its a horizontal component along x axis as, so H. What is its vertical component along y axis? You can call it as a V. So, now the question is, we have a force F, so where it can be split into its horizontal component and vertical component. What is the horizontal component of a force F and vertical component of a force F? Now, this concept of splitting a single vector into its horizontal and vertical component, we call it as a resolution of vectors. So, we have a mathematical proof of this. So, you can expect even the question in the examination in the form of define resolution of vectors and write down the expression for horizontal component of a vector and vertical component of a vector which is inclined with an angle of theta with the horizontal x axis. The question is like that. Now, let us consider a force let us consider a force F which is inclined with an angle, say theta with the x axis. Now, what is its horizontal component and what is its vertical component? So, for our convenience, the direction of the force is OA. Draw AC perpendicular to x axis. Draw AC perpendicular to x axis. Now, in the triangle OCA, you just to define the cos theta. Cos of an angle can be given as adjacent side to the hypotenuse side. What is the adjacent side? It is horizontal component. What is the hypotenuse side represents? So, it is F. So, you just cross multiply it. You can rewrite this one as H is equal to F cos theta. H is equal to F cos theta. I mean, this is the expression to calculate horizontal component of any vector. To calculate horizontal component of any vector, what should you know? You know for which force we are going to calculate its horizontal components, you know its magnitude and the angle of inclination of that force with the x axis you should know. If you know the theta and the magnitude of F, you can calculate the horizontal component of that force. Similarly, how can you calculate the vertical component of the same force? So, you just to define here in the same triangle OCA, define sine of an angle. Sine theta can be defined as the opposite side to the hypotenuse side, that is AC. Hypotenuse side is OA. So, we know that the sine theta is equal to AC is a line, vertical line which is parallel to the y axis. Therefore, it is a replica of the y axis. Therefore, so this AC, instead of AC you can write the vertical component to V. OA is again a force. By cross multiplication only you can write V is equal to F cos theta. This is the mathematical expression used to calculate the vertical component of a force. So, this phenomena of splitting a single force into its horizontal component and vertical component, we call it as a resolution of vectors. Observe the change here. In case of the resultant of a vector, we are going to combine the individual forces. So, here I mean in case of the resolution of the vectors, here a single force can be split into, so its components along the horizontal component and vertical component. H is equal to f cos theta is the expression for horizontal component of a vector. V is equal to f sin theta, it is, I am sorry, V is equal to f sin theta is the expression for the vertical component of a vector. So, this is about the simple concept of resolution of vectors from the examination point of view. So, this question is very important, it will be asked in many of the examinations. Please try to concentrate how to define resolution of a vector, how to get expression for a horizontal and vertical components of a vectors. Now, as I explained earlier, the algebra of the vectors is not so simple when compared to the algebra of scalars. Whenever two forces acted upon by a body simultaneously. Now, the question is, how can you calculate the resultant of the vector, resultant of these two vectors? To calculate the resultant of the two vectors, there are many laws in vectors, say parallelogram law of vectors, converse of triangle of vectors, etc. With respect to your syllabus, we are going to discuss what is parallelogram law, how it can be stated, what is the advantage of the parallelogram law. Similarly, converse of triangle of vectors, we are also discuss Lamis theorem and also polygon law of vectors. Now, let us study one by one. So, first one is parallelogram law of vectors. What is a parallelogram law of vectors? So, this law is used to find the resultant of any two vectors which are acted on a body simultaneously. The same law you should do in the applied science laboratory in the form of verification of parallelogram law of vectors. So, to conduct the experiment there, you should have a little bit theoretical concept regarding the parallelogram law. What is this last, how this law states means, this law states that whenever two forces acting on a body simultaneously, of course, if they can be represented by any two adjacent sides of a parallelogram taken in order, then those two forces, then the resultant of those two forces can be determined by drawing a diagonal to that parallelogram through that point. For example, you can consider one parallelogram. Let us consider the parallelogram. The parallelogram may be like this. You can call this one as O, A, B, C. So, this is the point object on which a force P is acted, which is represented by the one of the side adjacent to the particle O, OA. Another force is also acts on it simultaneously. So, that is OB is its direction. So, the resultant of these two, when these two forces acted upon by the body simultaneously, definitely this body neither follows the direction OA nor follows the direction OB, but it follows some other intermediate direction, that is called as a resultant. So, here we can calculate the resultant of these two forces by drawing a diagonal to this parallelogram through that point. This is a diagonal of this parallelogram through the point O. So, which is referred as R, that is resultant. So, once again I repeat the concept, when two forces acted on a body simultaneously can be represented vectorically, that is with both magnitude and direction, by the three sides, by the two sides of a parallelogram, by the any two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, then the resultant of these two forces can be determined simply by drawing a diagonal to this parallelogram through that point. So, you can give the example for parallelogram law of forces, soaring of a bird. So, if the by if a bird flies high by using the two wings, those two wings are representing the any two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, the direction of motion of the bird is the diagonal of the parallelogram. Towing of a boat is also an example for a parallelogram law. Any two forces acting on a body simultaneously can be represented vectorically by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram taken in order. Then the resultant of these two forces can be given by drawing a diagonal to this parallelogram through this point. This is how resultant of a resultant of vectors can be determined by using a parallelogram law. So, one more it is triangle law of forces. One more is triangle law of forces. So, here how the triangle law of forces has been stated. This is also used to find the addition of vectors or even for subtraction of vectors also. Here how you can say the triangle law of vectors means whenever three forces acting on a body simultaneously, those three forces can be represented vectorically by the three sides of the triangle taken in order, then those three forces are in equilibrium. This is the triangle law of vectors. So, I repeat, whenever three forces, you can say the point object is O, on this point object one of the force say P, another force is Q, one more force is R. Whenever these three forces acted upon by a body simultaneously, so all these three forces can be represented vectorically by the three sides of a triangle. I mean, you can represent the force P with its magnitude and direction by one of the sides of a triangle. Similarly, Q can be represented vectorically by another side of a triangle, and the third side can also represent vectorically by a same triangle. So, we have three forces. These three forces acted on a body simultaneously. These three forces with both magnitude and direction can be represented by the three sides of a triangle taken in order when these three forces are in equilibrium. This is called as a direct triangle law of forces. In your syllabus, it will be mentioned as converse of triangle law of vectors. Converse of triangle law of vectors. You can say condition, you just interchange the condition, call that one as a converse of triangle law of vectors. So, how you can say the converse of triangle law of vectors can be stated means, whenever three forces acting on a body simultaneously which are in equilibrium, whenever these three forces P, Q and R acting on a body O simultaneously, so the body is under rest, means all these three forces are in equilibrium. So, then each force can be represented with both magnitude and direction by the three sides of a triangle taken in order. This is a converse of triangle law of vectors. I mean, the question is, in the converse triangle of vector, how should we get the triangle? You can study this convention in the applied science lab manual, science lab class, where So, teacher will explain how to draw the triangle to represent these three forces vectorically. So, they says that just to draw a line parallel to the force P, draw the line parallel to the force Q, and also draw the line parallel to the force R. So, if you do like that by following the convention explained by your teacher, definitely you will get a triangle. So, that triangle, with that triangle, using the three sides of the triangle, you can represent all these three forces simultaneously. For instance, we have a force P. So, to write the triangle, draw a line parallel to force P like that. Suppose roughly I will write, this is the line parallel to force P. Similarly, draw the line parallel to force Q. Definitely this line is parallel to force Q. Draw the line parallel to force R like that. This is the line parallel to force R. So, this is the line parallel to force P, this is the line parallel to force Q, and this is the line parallel to force R. So, what you are verifying in the parallel triangle of forces means the ratio P by AB should be approximately equal to Q by BC, which is equal to R by AC. We know that in case of a triangle, each force is directly proportional to their side. Here P is there, side AB is there, therefore, P is directly proportional to side AB. Q is there, side BC is there, Q is proportional to side BC. R is there, side AC is also there. So, I mean P, each side is, each force is proportional to its side, P proportional to AB, or P is equal to some proportionality constant into AB, or P divided by AB, which is equal to a constant. Similarly, you can write Q by BC is equal to constant, R by AC is equal to constant. So, whenever three forces acting on a body simultaneously which are in equilibrium, then each force can be represented with both magnitude and direction by the three sides of a triangle taken in order. You can give many examples for the triangle of forces, like hanging a picture to the wall. Using two rigid supports, a picture has been hanged to the wall. So, similarly, one more simple example is center stand of a motorcycle or your any two wheeler. So, center stand of a motorcycle also represents the triangle law of vectors. So, all of you doing the same experiment in the applied science laboratory, it will be important from the examination point of view also. Therefore, concentrate more on these experiment. So, next concept is Lami's theorem. So, Lami's theorem states that whenever three forces acting on a body simultaneously, I repeat, whenever three forces acting on a body simultaneously which are in equilibrium, then you can write each force as a directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces. So, you consider the same concept. There is a material object O on which force P is acted in the direction OA. So, force Q is acted in the direction OB. Then this is the force R in the direction OC. We have three forces acted upon by a body simultaneously. Then each force, then that is you can say each force means consider one of the force, say P, which is directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces. So, for P, which are the other two forces means Q and R. So, for our convenience, let us call the angle between Q and R as alpha. Then you can write, so P proportional to sin alpha, where alpha is the angle between the forces Q and R. That means each force is directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces. In a similar way, you can say the force Q, which is also directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces. So, for Q, which are the other two forces means R and P. Again, for our convenience, let us call the angle between R and P as beta. Therefore, you can write Q proportional to sin beta. And the third force R is directly proportional to sine of the angle between, for R, other two forces are P and Q. You can call it as a gamma. R proportional to sine gamma. So, according to Lamis theorem, each force is directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces, that is alpha, beta and gamma respectively. So, by following the principles of the physics, you can say P is equal to some proportionality constant into sine alpha, or even you can write this one as P by sine alpha, so which is equal to a constant. Similarly, you can write Q by sine beta, which is equal to constant, and R by sine gamma, which is also equal to a constant. In the laboratory, you are going to prove the ratio P by sine alpha, which is equal to Q by sine beta, which is equal to R by sine gamma. This is the brief information about the Lamis theorem. You are tracing the three forces including a knot on your drawing sheet. Later on, measuring the angles, the angle between the force P, Q and R as alpha, R and P as beta, and P and Q as gamma, and substitute in these equation and calculate. So, if all these three ratio will give almost to same value within the limitations of the experimental error, then you can say Lamis theorem has been verified. When three forces acting on a body simultaneously, then each force is directly proportional to sine of the angle between other two forces. It is the Lamis theorem. So, one more law is there in your syllabus, that is also called as a called as a polygon law of forces or polygon law of vectors. Poly means many. So, whenever a material body is acted upon by the many forces, how can you trace out the resultant is the question. So, this law states that when number of forces acting on a body simultaneously can be represented vectorically by the different sides of a polygon taken in order, then the resultant should be given for those number of forces acting on a body simultaneously by completing that polygon in a reverse direction. So, for example, so it will be, you can construct a polygon. So, this may be a polygon like this. So, it will be acted by a force A, it will be acted by a force B, it will be acted by a force C, D, E, like that. So, when these number of forces acting on a body simultaneously, those magnitude and directions can be represented by the sides of a polygon taken in order. Then the closing side of that polygon, in the reverse direction, it will gives the resultant of all these forces. When number of forces acting on a body simultaneously can be represented vectorically by the different sides of a polygon, the resultant of those forces can be given simply by completing the side of a polygon in a reverse sense, is the polygon law of forces. Now let us move on to what is the mathematical equation used to calculate the resultant of two or more vectors. So please recall, while explaining the parallelogram law of forces, I will say the to do algebra of vectors, we are following the many conventions. To find the resultant of any two vectors, one of the way is parallelogram law. Now by making use of a parallelogram law of vectors, we are going to derive an equation which is used to find the resultant of two vectors. From the examination point of view also it is very important. Let us consider a parallelogram. So as I write earlier, so the parallelogram may be O, A, B, C. What the parallelogram law sense means, on the point body, if two forces say P and Q acted upon simultaneously, which are represented with both magnitude and directions by the any two adjacent sides of a parallelogram taken in order. Definitely if two forces acting on a body simultaneously, so then it will have a resultant. How can you find the resultant of these two means? Simply by drawing a diagonal to that parallelogram through that point. So this is the diagonal and it will be a replica of the resultant of these two forces. This is the parallelogram law. When two forces acting on a body simultaneously can be represented vectorically by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram taken in order, then the resultant of these two forces can be given by drawing a diagonal to this parallelogram through that point. Now let us imagine that the angle of inclination between these two forces, you call it as a theta. We have two forces P and Q and are represented by the two adjacent sides OA and OB in the triangle OABC as shown in the figure. Let theta be the angle of inclination between the forces P and Q. So and alpha be the angle of inclination between the resultant of these two forces with P. Now for our convenience, produce OA and draw CD perpendicular to OA. It is the geometrically we need this construction. So just to produce OA, so and draw CD perpendicular to OA produced. Definitely this AD is the representation of the force P and this AC is a force which is parallel to force Q. Therefore it is Q, it is P. The angle between P and Q is again it is a theta. So we have a parallelogram OABC. In the parallelogram OABC, we have two forces P and Q by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram OA and OB. R is the resultant which can be represented by the diagonal OC. OA is produced and draw CD perpendicular to the OA produced, and by geometry you can write the angle, this is the angle theta. So let us consider in right angled triangle OCD. In right angle triangle OCD, so you can write OC square is equal to OD square plus CD square. OC square is equal to OD square plus CD square according to Pythagoras theorem. Again OC square you can rewrite, OC square is equal to, by geometry you can say OD as OA plus AD. OD can be rewrite as OA plus AD whole square plus CD square. Now OC square, which is equal to, this is in the form of A plus B whole square, A square plus 2 times AB plus B square plus CD square, you can write as it is. Now OC square, which is equal to OA square plus 2 times OA into AD plus in triangle ADC you can apply the Pythagoras theorem. So, Pythagoras theorem is square of the longest side must be equal to sum of the squares of the remaining two sides. I mean, in triangle ACD, you can write AC square is equal to AD square plus CD square. AC square is equal to AD square plus CD square. I mean, instead of AD square plus CD square, you can replace it for AC square. Now, in the same triangle ACD, we have a angle theta. Define for sine of an angle and cos of an angle. Sine of an angle, it is opposite to the hypotenuse. Opposite is CD, hypotenuse is AC. Then you can write, so CD is equal to AC sin theta. We have one more convention, CD is equal to AC sin theta, and also define in the same triangle for cosine of an angle. It is an adjacent side to hypotenuse. Adjacent is AD, hypotenuse is AC. So, now you can write AD is equal to AC cos theta. Now, so you have to implement all these conditions in this expression. OC represents a force R. It is R square, which is equal to OA, it is a representation of the force P, their square is there, you can put square P square plus 2 times OA, OA is again P, AD means AC cos theta plus AC square, AC is what? It is the representation of the force Q, therefore it is Q square. So, rewrite this one, R square is equal to P square plus, I write first Q square plus 2 times P. AC means again it is a side parallel to for side OB, which is representing the force Q, it is Q, it is cos theta. So, this is the equation used to find the resultant of any two forces which is